For me, I chose $100,000, making your first $100,000 as a benchmark because I believe it's lofty enough, but it's not so crazy in here uh, as saying something like making your first million. Unless you've been in business before, um, a lot of times you're really just trying to make your first 10K, or you're really just trying to make rent for the first time, or not having to take it out of savings or out of your own personal funds. Or, if you got funding of some sort, trying to mitigate the money coming out of that fund on things like operational expenses, that sort of thing. So I'm a big believer that, setting the bar at like 100K feels doable enough, but ambitious enough to really have to work toward it. And what I love about this is, there are hopefully people in the, or not hopefully, there are people in community that have, far exceeded that. I'll be bringing in experts all over the place, or from all over the place, that have far exceeded that, both in their personal wealth as well as their business successes. And the goal, more than anything, is something that I always say is put yourself in the room with people that are smarter than you, more connected than you, more passionate than you, that grind harder than you, and so shall you be. Meaning, when you put yourself in the room with people that have already done it, then it kind of gives you the onus to do it yourself and to make sure that you're showing up in a way that respects their time and their efforts, but that also puts you in the same conversation as someone who will indeed reach that goal as well. And I love when, you know, super successful people and not so successful people sort of converge, because it definitely levels up the ones that aren't quite as successful as the ones that are successful, but it also gives the ones who are, wildly successful a teaching moment. I believe everyone deserves a teaching moment, and everyone should have a teaching moment, because there's this very sort of uh, um, innate um, need, if you want my opinion, to share your knowledge. It's a validation of sorts, the fact that you've done it, and now you can sort of pay it forward by helping other people succeed as well. And I love that. I love giving people a teaching moment, and I love, like I said, putting people at all different stages of success in the same room, or in this case, the same community, because that then helps to level, to sort of rise all the boats, if you will, and not necessarily pull any boats down. It's really just helping to rise all the boats to around the same level. And I think, there's a lot of times where people that are super successful only liaise with people who are also super successful. I get that. But I think there's also an opportunity to sort of bring those people in, even if it's only for a minute or two, or the space of a webinar, or just an interview or something like that, where they can share their experience and their knowledge and their expertise, and again, sort of help to rise the boats and give people who are potentially a little less successful the sort of vision of what that looks like, what it feels like, something to emulate even, if you find someone that has sort of like the same characteristics as you, or similar characteristics as you, or came from nothing like you did, or went to a school that most people are just like, it's not Wharton, it's not Yale, blah blah blah. uh, there's so many opportunities to, how would you say, to sort of assimilate, or to at least feel validated by someone else's process, even if they are more successful than you are. So that's really what I'm after with regard to, um, you know, the content and the engagement. But, from a content perspective, I think we've been bombarded, unfortunately, with social media and talking about, make your first million, your first 10 million, 10 million, becoming a billionaire is easy. It's actually easy, and all this other BS. It's kind of like, okay, well, fine, show me, and that's kind of really what I've based my audiences on, and my sort of LinkedIn presence, for instance, on, is just telling the truth. I want to help people figure this out, because I'm also trying to figure it out. And that's another reason why I don't want to come in as the guru. I want to come in as someone that's also, that knows a lot and knows a lot of people, but I also want to be, just as much of a student as an educator. And I'm a big believer that I can now leverage my network, pull in people that are far more successful than anyone in the community to sort of help us really understand the nuance of the mindset, the actions, the conversations we should be having, the vernacular we should be using, the knowledge we should have about the internal workings of the business, the finances, once we're seeking um, funding, what does that look like? What are potential funders looking for? Like all of this information is stuff that unfortunately we have to go to every damn outlet on the planet trying to find it, craft it in such a way that makes sense, especially when you don't understand the nuance or certain vernacular or certain, acronyms, that sort of thing, and no one to tell you. So now you're running around trying to, piece it together from LinkedIn or, whatever AI source du jour that's out there. Do you understand? Like for me, it's all about just trying to amalgamate all of that information in a community that allows, people to sort of get the information all the way down to the most specific information and really work it, if that makes any sense. I want this community to be about working this information, working through these problems, have everyone, putting their input in or inputting their input, whatever the hell, and really, going line by line and making sure that it sticks. Because inevitably, if it sticks and you're able to replicate that and also teach it backwards, I like to say, then in a weird way, it sort of cements it in your mind and it cements it, to a degree where you do become a bit of an expert at it. It is something that you can sort of, recall quite quickly and answer in the moment. And should a problem arise, you will have that information at the ready because you're like, well, wait a minute, we talked about this. And actually we did, we walked through this piece by piece with a billionaire. To me, that is invaluable, knowing that you have the ability to really access that information, both in the moment, but then also subconsciously, just because you've worked it. It's almost like going to school. That's why I call it an academy. I mean, it's not really an academy, but it is kind of an academy in the sense that it allows you to really work through these problems with an expert or with among each other and go line by line until you really have it committed to memory so that it becomes innate when you need it and when you have to call upon it. So as far as value and yes, there's a zillion different platforms out there that are doing this, that, and the other, and that's fine. I'm not trying to be the best of anything for anyone. I'm just trying to be the most relevant for the people that really get me, sort of get the general um, purpose of the community, and that really want to contribute and be a part and sort of go on this, first 100K journey, and then hopefully first million and whatever else. Which we'll see how we do it getting to 100K and how quickly we can do that. That's another thing. It's a little bit of a challenge. I didn't tell anyone that yet, but the whole idea is to get as many people within the community as quickly as possible to 100K in ARR. So yeah. Well, that's a whole other part, but I'm excited about that as well, just because I think, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's figure out what your true dedication is. And let's just go for it. Let's work together. I'll bring in experts. I'll bring in everybody I know. You bring in your friends and experts and husbands and wives and everything else that work in, certain industries and all of that. And together in aggregate, we'll have all of the information. We'll work it. We'll hold each other accountable. That's the most important part. And we'll continue to grow. And hopefully in, 8 months, a year, whatever, we'll be at that 100K mark or beyond. And then we can really start getting to that 1 million and $10 million mark, which I have no doubt we all will at some point. I just think the tea leaves have lined up in such a great way, or the planets have aligned in such a great way where it's inevitable if you put in the work and if you have a community that is really dedicated to doing this. I honestly believe that it can be done and it will be done. It really now with the frontier that is AI, as well as the frontier that is this sort of business model of online businesses and even brick and mortar businesses. it's the perfect time to strike while the iron's hot and while the opportunity is still there. And then specifically, we're seeing it with all of the layoffs that are going on, which in my opinion, and I've been beating the drum about this for years, that are AI driven. There's going to be a lot of unemployable people because those roles are now being handled by bots. And my thing is, well, what are you going to do about it? What have you set up in your life so that you have a plan B and a plan C? And a lot of people have no plan B or plan C. They've been out of work for months. They're feeling, beat up and confused. And in a lot of cases, they've never had to deal with a layoff before or dealing with hard things in general because everything's been handed to them, and they're cushy, you know, um, tech jobs with, everybody, free food and free everything. Now you got to work for it. And now you got to get crafty and figure out how the hell you're going to keep the lights on and not have to move home with mom. So, I don't want that to sound um, unempathetic or in any way um, what to put it, in any way just rude or um, insensitive. It's not that at all. It's now I want to arm people with a plan B and a plan C. I want to arm them with a community that, it's not going to be an overnight success. I don't want a bunch of people in my community trying, looking to get rich tomorrow. That's not what it's about. I've gone that route. I've been quite public about me trying that, and it's failed miserably. And I've lost tens of thousands of dollars on stupid ass mistakes like that, writing checks or handing over the credit card. But I did that, to be honest, as a bit of a trial. I wanted to see, okay, I'm pretty damn competent and I'm as dedicated as they come. So my thing is, had that worked, had I become a millionaire by spending $6,800 on the last guru that I spent all this money on, and followed their methods, to the T, which I kind of did. I won't lie, I kind of I didn't like some of the stuff they were saying because it went against my artistic integrity, but that's my own fault. But all that said, had I, actually achieved what they said that I could potentially achieve, and still think that I can, based on some of the things that I learned, then hell yeah, I was going to tell everybody and their mama, like, okay, here you go. You know what I mean? Here's the information that I got. Here's my take on it. And voila, here's your course. And, me become a multimillionaire based on, selling a course that was snake oil, essentially. But as snake oil is, it's not real life. And it's not necessarily filled with the right information or the right components in order to create success. Success has so many components, you guys, and that's the one thing that I want to get across in this interview, or at least answering this question, is that success it's so many things. It's intention, it's effort, it's always being curious, it's studying, it's being okay being uncomfortable and being in pain sometimes. It's sometimes getting, spending down to your last dollar, not knowing where your next dollar is going to come from. All of those things contribute to the passion, if you want my opinion, that allows for the mind space for success to happen. I think a lot of people never get to this mind space or this state in their lives where they really crave success, so much so that they'll do anything and move any mountain in order to reach it. And I think these days, because it's so noisy, you have to have that level of dedication and singular focus in order to create any sort of level of success. And a lot of people don't have that because they're pulled in 16, 17, 18, 19 different directions. I'm guilty as well, I won't lie. But I've gotten better at my singular focus, and I purposely chose a new direction that is a brick and mortar that keeps me where I am. I can't go anywhere. So I have to focus on it in order to make it successful. But I think a lot of people, still just find it hard to focus on one thing and really see it through, because we're taught and ad nauseum on social media that, do this. Oh no, actually do this. Oh no, new shiny object, go do this, that kind of thing. And over time, it leads to confusion, and that level of confusion, especially when you don't make any headway after months and months and months of doing all this quote unquote studying and living on YouTube and all of these socials, thinking that you're actually creating a new knowledge or a new pathway or whatever else, and you've actually stunted your growth because there's so much information coming in and it's not accurate information, and it's also not consistent. Um, and and it's just all over the place. That's unfortunately when people don't succeed because then it becomes, well, maybe I'm just stupid, or maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe success isn't for me. And it almost sort of forces you into this anti-belief system of, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought it was, or maybe only that handful are the ones that become successful. I'm a 100% true believer that anyone can become successful, but you have to have the right environment, you have to have the right community behind you, you have to have the right mentorship, and you have to definitely have the right mindset and sort of physiology, if you will, to stay singularly focused so that you can succeed. We can't jump around all over the place anymore. It's almost like antithetical to what they say on social. You actually do need to focus on one thing for a number of years in order for it to be wildly successful. Alex Hormozy says that these days, especially like hardcore. He's like, I've had to work, years in order to get something. And his story is one that I find, incredibly inspiring just because now that I'm running a gym, I'm in his previous life when he was just like, what the hell am I gonna do? And luckily I'm able to sort of iterate a little bit differently just because I've been in business on the other side for so long. So I won't make quite as many of the same mistakes, but it's the same level of angst. It's the same level of WTF. Like, what am I gonna do here if this doesn't work? And getting down to some pretty scary savings numbers, if you will. But the one thing that I have in spades is belief in myself and belief that indeed I can turn anything around. And that's another thing that I love about community and being part of a community that is that if you don't necessarily have that innately, you grow it over time just because you know that you have that support system behind you. And for me, that's one of the major um, pieces of value, if you will, about the community that I'm creating with BounceBack Academy. It's again, it's the information and it's the access. It's the consistency. It's working everything that we do. And again, trying to create a repository of information that's innate and something that you can access at any time, especially if things happen in the moment. That to me is what leads to success because you're not blindsided and you're not thrown by something that doesn't go to plan. You're able to sort of iterate in the moment and figure it out or get on the phone or whatever as needed because you've got that community behind you that can help you succeed or at least help you out of an emergency.